February 5th, 2025 meeting of the Lower Merion Board of Commissioners. We have 6 meetings this evening. We have a Grants and Community Development Committee meeting, a special Board of Commissioners meeting, a Police Committee meeting, Sustainability Committee, Library Committee, Building and Planning Committee, and at the end of that, we're going to go back to the special Board of Commissioners meeting to finish up some business. So before we start, please silence your cell phones. Excuse me. Amplifying equipment is available for those who are having difficulty hearing. The room is also equipped with telecoil technology. And when the floor is open for public comment later, we will first take public comment from those who are in the room at this podium to your left. Then we will turn to people who are attending by Zoom. We ask that you introduce yourself before beginning your comments. So with that, we're going to turn to the first committee meeting for this evening. It's the Grants and Community Development Committee. I recognize its chair, Commissioner Epstein.
Thank you, President Sinai. We have one item on the agenda this evening, a public hearing on the CDBG 5-year consolidated plan, CDBG funding needs for 2025 to 2026, and analysis impediments to fair housing. So we'll be, in a minute, opening the public hearing, but first, Emily Crane will come up and give us a brief overview of the program. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Epstein. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for being here. For anyone who is not aware, for many, many years, the township has received a community development block grant every year from the Department of Housing and Urban Development, otherwise known as HUD. And I'll try to give you a brief overview for some of you and a reminder of how this program works. The township is considered by HUD to be an entitlement community. We have that status based on our size. And it really means that unlike a lot of other communities who have to go through their county to get funds, we get them directly from HUD and are able to decide locally how we spend them. While we do have some flexibility in the spending, these are community development block grants, and they are specifically designed to help residents in the community who have low and moderate incomes, or of an age to be considered senior citizens, or have some sort of physical or intellectual disability is the main purpose for these funds. The township works with HUD simultaneously on a 5-year and a 1-year cycle. Every 5 years, we are required to submit to HUD a 5-year consolidated plan, laying out the community needs that have been identified in the planning process and establishing goals for meeting those needs. And then for each year within that 5-year plan, we're required to submit an annual action plan, a 1-year plan, which sets out the goals for that year to meet the needs in the 5-year plan, and also includes a little bit more detail, like a budget of how those funds are going to be allocated. And that, of course, the budget depends on HUD's allocation for that year. Right now, we're in the midst of the 5th year of a 5-year plan. This plan was 2020 to 2024. We are technically still in the 2024 HUD year. HUD goes from July 1 to June 30th, unlike the township. So we are in the midst of that plan, but we are working on the next plan, which will run from 2025, July 1, 2025, through the 2029 HUD year. And we are concurrently working on the action plan for this upcoming year. In addition to those two things, we're also working on what's called an analysis of impediments to fair housing. It's another report that is required by HUD to look at fair housing in the township, identify if there are any barriers to fair housing, and set goals to try to get rid of those barriers. So township staff has been working along with our HUD consultants on outreach to residents and stakeholders for input on creating all of these documents. We've had meetings, a lot of meetings with public service providers, township staff, faith leaders, educators, realtors, and more that I'm not thinking of, in an attempt to reach as many people as possible. There is a resident survey that went out. It's been distributed online and in paper in some cases. So we've received to date almost 500 surveys back, which I'm told by our consultants is very impressive. So good job, everyone. If you are a township resident and you are here tonight, you guys, and you haven't filled one out yet, I've left a pile on the table by the window outside the door. There's pens there and surveys, so if you haven't filled one out, please do. And incidentally, there's a sign-in sheet for this. I'd like to see a sign-in sheet of who's come to this hearing, so if you haven't signed in, please do. Okay, so this is the first of 2 public hearings that are required to set up each township year, each HUD year, as part of our, to review needs going into the 5-year plan and the action plan and the analysis of impediments. The purpose of this hearing is for the commissioners to hear public comment from people in the public about what they believe the needs are in this township prior to reviewing applications and developing the action plan and completing the consolidated plan. A second public hearing will be in March. At that time, all the applications will be in and will have been reviewed, and we will be presenting to the board a budget for the year, for the 2025-2026 year, which will start on July 1st. There'll be another meeting in April at which the board will be asked to approve, 2 meetings really, but the board will be asked to approve the budget so that we can send it on time to HUD by May 15th. As a lot of you probably know, the schedule is always subject to change depending on when HUD lets us know what our allocation is going to be. We don't know this year yet what our allocation is, but we've typically received approximately $975,000 over the last 5 years. So with that $975,000, just as a reminder too, we spread it over a bunch of categories typically. We're allowed to spend up to 20% on admin, administration and planning, which is typically staff salaries, HUD consultants fees, furthering fair housing, which is a requirement of our grant, and also working on some planning for affordable housing. We can also occasionally do a planning grant for different organizations if there is anybody in need. Another category is public services. We have a 15% cap on public services, which, as everybody knows, is always the really hard one. We have all these amazing organizations in our community that do great work, providing senior services, services for victims of domestic violence, food services, legal services, you name it. We've got lots of organizations out there doing great work, and we never have quite enough money to go around. The bulk of it is spent on different housing initiatives, and some is also spent on infrastructure improvements and economic development. So that's the basis of where we spend the money. And on that note, I think we can open up maybe the commissioners first and then to the public. And what we're really hoping is that people can share their ideas about what the needs are in the township in terms of housing, homelessness, public services, senior services, any other special needs that you can think of that you see a need for, fair housing, community and public facility improvements, economic development, or please just let us know what you see as our needs. So,
yeah, thank you very much. We're actually going to start with anyone in the room who wants to make a comment. Come on up to the podium.
I just have one question. She said 20% towards 15%.
Yeah, so hold on. I'm sorry. No, that's fine. If you wanted to come up and make a comment, then we can kind of respond at the end. I think it'd be easier than a back and forth.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Erica Patio, and I'm with Mainline Meals on Wheels. You've seen me here once or twice before. The first time I came was a year ago for the exact same reason. Today I'd like to share a few different things with you. According to Meals on Wheels America, there's about 3.4 million Pennsylvanians 60 or older, and about a quarter of them live alone or have a disability. These factors, along with fixed incomes, and increase the vulnerability of our growing senior population. One of the 2 seniors in the state of Pennsylvania who live alone lack the income to pay for basic needs. Now let's bring it down to Lower Merion Township. Meals on Wheels delivers to about 50 to 60 folks within Lower Merion Township, and we are subsidizing at 54%. Same exact statistic within Lower Merion that is in the state of Pennsylvania. 1 out of 2 seniors who's not able to afford it. And what does that mean? Our daily meal cost is $11.25. We take 25% of that off right away and self-fund it through grants and so forth, and that's pretty much our payroll and administrative cost. So the only thing that we bill is $8.50. So imagine a hot meal, a bowl of soup, and a lunch bag for $8.50. We haven't raised prices in 5 years, and still, half of the seniors that we serve in Lower Merion Township are asking for subsidies. So that's about 30 folks. As a result of being here last year and starting through the process of understanding what the documentation requirements are for HUD, we made some changes to our system and our processes. So now every Lower Merion Township individual who is applying or who would like to receive meals from Meals on Wheels, we have them fill out the self-income certification form. And it was really very educational for us, because what we found is that 95% of the folks that we serve fall into the extremely low, or moderate income level. So the funding that we're looking for, rest assured, hits the mark, hits the folks. Granted, 30 people that we're subsidizing is not a huge number compared to the 60,000 in the township, but still, any monies that you can share with us through HUD for us will be very much appreciated by those folks. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. I like those jerseys. Go Eagles. We're going to win. I'm Manira Walker from Neighbors Helping Neighbors on the Main Line, Holland Avenue in Ardmore. I'd like to say, first of all, thanks for doing the affordability survey. We've been, at Neighbors Helping Neighbors, we've been getting responses from those who are directly within the community, who live there, who would not have seen the survey online or by other means. We've been assisting disabled citizens with their input and such, so that you can get a well-rounded voice of the community with the 5-year plan. With that, and just with general conversation at Neighbors Helping Neighbors, I can tell you that we have a few things in the community that we're very, very concerned about, and we want to make sure that they get into this 5-year plan. One of which is we're really happy about the new housing that's going to go up at Ardmore 2. Our largest concern is that we still don't have any affordable housing for the 20 and 30 and 40 and 50-year-olds, especially those of us from our community who want to stay in the community, want to raise our families here, and continually we cannot. So we really want to see something get into this plan for those who have not aged out at 62 and older, but who deserve the right to stay in this community. We want to see a little varying on the houses that the township provides for affordability, because when you buy a house in our township for $100 and some odd thousand, and then you rehab it, and then you put it into the affordable housing circuit, it's now priced out for most of our community. It's too high of a price. We'd like to look at that again. We want you to buy that house, bring it up to code, but don't spend anything pretty. We don't really care about pretty. We care about having a house to live in that we can afford. So we'd like to be maybe at the table when you make those kinds of decisions to help inform you on what our community actually needs in that regard, and how you can use these sorts of strategies to keep it affordable for us so we actually can get in those houses. Another thing is, so with the CDBG funding, when it comes to recreation and opportunities for our seniors and for our children, we have a big concern, because the way we know has been mentioned in the past about the allocations of the 15%, a fair amount of that goes to salaries for the Ardmore Avenue Community Center. As a matter of fact, I think more than 2/3 of it every year. And now that the center is closing for, the rebuild, and Palm is closing for the renovations, we'd like to see that money actually get to those of us organizations, Meals on Wheels, Neighbors Helping Neighbors, and pantries and such, so that we can service the people, especially when it comes to the programming for the children and seniors, because we basically will be the only community center in the area while the rebuilding is done. So that's another thing that our community has expressed large concern for. So I think I may have gone a little over. I thank you for allowing me the extra time to convey a lot of our community voice. As I always say when I come up here and speak, I'm not speaking with my opinions. I'm bringing you the conversation that the community has brought to me and has entrusted me to share fairly with you. So we do have some other members of the community. I hope that they can give you a broader view on what they'd like. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Anise Myers, and and I live here in the community, and I have 13 grandchildren, 10 of which live in this community. What I'm asking for tonight is some of the funds to go towards sporting. Football, I take my grandkids to Narberth to play football, and we used to take them to Conshohocken to play football. No basketball AAUs. We have nothing for the community children that we do in our community. So I'm asking for something for us starting sports like football. I see the Eagles jerseys on. Well, we love football, but we have to go 30 minutes away to play it when there's a playground right on Ardmore Avenue. So I'm just asking for that. Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Maria Macaluso. I'm the Executive Director of the Women's Center of Montgomery County. We are a domestic violence program. We serve more than 4,200 adult victims a year, and over 200 of those self-identify as being from Lower Merion Township. I'm really just here to thank you. We had the opportunity to work with some wonderful people. I see the police department here. They were the very first in our state to volunteer to be part of a new program called the Lethality Assessment Project, which helps identify people at high risk and connect them immediately with case management services. It was a hard sell at the time, and they were the first to step up, and they've stayed with us for the years. We've had close to 50 referrals of people who are at high risk of danger escalating to violence. So we have found such warmth and welcoming. Emily, the people in this really are a community, and we really value the opportunity to be here. We have an office in Bryn Mawr. That would not be possible without the support we have. Every year my board says, well, do we need another office? We have 7 offices. This is one that we always will fight for because the community has welcomed us. We've gotten volunteers from this community, and I just wanted to come and say thank you. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening, Commissioners. My name is Carolyn Steinhofer. I'm with the Housing Equality Center of Pennsylvania. We provide fair housing services to residents of Lower Merion Township. Thank you so much for your support over the years. I think one of the most important things that we do is, it's so hard for individuals to find housing, afford housing. Once individuals are in their housing, we want to keep them stably housed. With an aging population, people with disabilities, oftentimes elderly people with disabilities, veterans with disabilities, they need special accommodations or modifications in order to be able to continue living in their houses, and we assist them with that. We also provide technical assistance to housing providers in Lower Merion Township. So landlords, property managers, realtors, they can contact us and I'll provide them with technical assistance and help them avoid fair housing complaints. We also provide a number of really valuable resources like a Know Your Rights as a Renter in Pennsylvania manual and a manual for landlords and property managers. So thank you so much for your support and have a nice evening.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Darsha Adams. I live in Ardmore. This is my first time speaking, but I'm listening and I'm learning, and I want to touch on 2 things that I heard tonight. Neighbors Helping Neighbors and funding called HUD for the community. Neighbors Helping Neighbors is a beautiful place for the children. They come, they learn. I have a grandson that goes to the program, and I can say this proudly, he's doing horrible in school, but when he goes to her class, he does beautiful, which I'm grateful for. He likes to play, but they make time for them, they play with them, they love them. Not saying schools are bad, but the love is here. And as far as homes go, I would love to see the money distributed to Neighbors Helping Neighbors and for the low community of Lower Merion Township. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Anyone else in the room? Do we have anyone on Zoom?
There are a couple people on Zoom, but no one has their hand raised.
Okay. Any comments from the committee? Yeah. Commissioner Stevenson, yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, thank everyone for coming out to make the comments that they made. I think that all of those comments about the need for us to address not only fair housing, but community grants to support our community. I've said this before, one of the biggest misconceptions that some people have about Lower Merion is that we are this place of that economic wealth. We are just as diverse as the rest of America. And as a result of that, we have to be committed to make sure that we meet the needs across the board. And we thank those organizations representatives who came forth tonight to talk about the work that they're doing in our community. And we, as a township and commissioners, must continue to work towards that. I would just say about the housing piece, I do take pride to be a part of this board that is moving forward with the Artmo 2 House. Equally proud to be a part of this board that we're moving forward to the Ardmore Community Center, both that are overdue. However, I think that there's a lot of work to do. I've chaired this ad hoc committee for affordable housing for the last few years, and I find that, that while we made these good work, there's a lot more to be done. And I would encourage members of the community, the larger community, to not only come to the Board of Commissioners to talk about the things that we need to do, but organize around those kind of things, grassroots, that need to be done. Number one of the things that I think that holds us back in this township, no different from a lot of other townships like us, is that zoning. I think that the community needs to challenge the Board of Commissioners to change the way that we look at zoning, to create an opportunity to look at how to make this affordable and more expandable across the township and not have red line zoning. The second piece to that, I would say, is that it is important for us as a community to look at other alternatives outside of the board. For instance, a lot of organizations create land grants, land banks, and other things within the community to help preserve some of the housing stock within historical communities, to preserve those. I would say to you that in 8 months I'll have a lot more time on my hand to work with members of the community who are interested in that kind of work. But I would like to end by saying that having said all that, this Board of Commissioners, I will say that for the last 7 years, across the board has been committed to that work, and I'm proud to be a part of that work. So thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? All right. Oh, yep. Commissioner Kramer.
As you know, our chair of our Health Advisory Council came and spoke at length about the issue of food insecurity to this board. And when we tried to set aside funds in the budget for a food insecurity fund, we were told that the right way to address that issue is through this process. So I would hope that we would use some of the public service funds to address the issue of food insecurity. In the past, almost the overwhelming majority, at probably 70% or so, of all of the public services money has gone to township expenditures, especially township salaries. And instead of allocating the majority of the money to salaries that the township should otherwise pay, we should be devoting more of the public services money to the organizations that are actually providing services to people on a day-to-day basis.
Okay. I just want to take a moment to thank everybody who came today, and all of those people in our community who will maybe come to the next public hearing and maybe won't come to one, but are doing so much good work in Lower Merion. I said it last year, I'll say it probably every year that I am on this committee. I love being able to do anything to help with that work. So being on this committee is fantastic. There are so many people out there in the community. Meals on Wheels, fantastic. I can't even name them all. You're all doing great work. So thank you so much for being here and for your time and your efforts. And we look forward to giving you some money in a couple months. And that, nothing else? Okay. That concludes the business of Grants Community Development for the evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Epstein. So, as Commissioner Epstein said, we were fortunate to be the conduit of a bunch of federal money to spend locally, because it's dispersed locally. hopefully that will continue. And it's the right way to do it because, we in the local community know better than the federal government what the most appropriate use of that money is, right? And so this is the beginning of the process, not the end. Really grateful for everyone who came out to start the discussion. Look forward to continuing it over the course of the year, and continue to support the really terrific organizations that we have in this township that are doing absolutely wonderful work. Thank you. So with that, we're going to turn to the special Board of Commissioners meeting. So will the February 5th, 2025 special meeting of the Board of Commissioners of the Township of Lower Merion please come to order and all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Secretary, will you please call the roll?
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Churchill, Ms. S. Kramer, and Mr. Woodring have asked to be excused, and I believe Mr. Zella will be joining us later. Mr. Bernheim.
Go Birds.
Mr. Courtney.
Here.
Ms. Epstein.
Here.
Mr. Gabbard.
Go Birds.
Mr. Grimes.
Here.
Ms. G. Kramer.
Here.
Mr. Rossman. Dr. Rossman.
Here.
Mr. Stevenson.
Present.
Mr. Whalen.
Here.
Mr. Sinai.
Here.
Mr. President, we have a quorum.
Okay, thank you, Madam Secretary. So we're going to turn to public comment. This is a section of our meeting where members of the public may address the board on any agenda items, and the one that is for this special board meeting is the Cynwyd Road parking and circulation changes. So if you have comments about that, there'll be comments on everything else that's going to come later. There's just this one thing. Please come to this podium and state your name prior to addressing the board. I'm going to ask that you keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. Please go ahead.
Good evening. Jonathan McNabb. My name is Peter Meltzer. I'm a resident of Penwyn Road. I'm an attorney in Center City, Philadelphia, specializing in real estate, and I'm here as a representative of the residents, all of the residents of Penwyn Road, which is a little L-shaped street in Wynwood, part of which ends at Sabine
Sir,
Street.
I'm going to ask you to speak later, so we haven't gotten to that part of the
Oh, I
meeting
thought that's what,
No, this is only for on Cynwyd Road.
oh, Cynwyd.
I know, we have this Welsh
I thought you said
town,
Penwyn. I'm
everything
sorry.
sounds the same. So very sorry, but you started. I think we will have a lot of comment at that point in the meeting, but that's not this point, so sorry about that. Okay, anyone who wants to talk about this particular segment of road in Bala Cynwyd? Okay. Jody, anyone online?
No one has their hand raised.
Okay. So with that, I'm going to move that we adopt ordinance number 4304, which is Chapter 145, Vehicles and Traffic, Cynwyd Road Parking and Circulation Changes, which is an ordinance to amend the Code of the Township of Lower Merion, Chapter 145, entitled Vehicles and Traffic, Article 15, Schedules 145-104, Schedule 4, One-Way Highways, by making Cynwyd Road one-way in an easterly direction from the bend at the access drive of 1 Cynwyd Road to Union Avenue, and amending Section 145-106, Schedule 6, intersections restricted as to turns and through traffic, by prohibiting entrance onto Cynwyd Road in an easterly direction from the bend at the access drive of 1 Cynwyd Road, and by amending Section 145-106, Schedule 6, intersections restricted as to turns and through traffic, by allowing right turns only for traffic heading in a southerly direction on Cynwyd Road at Union Avenue, and by amending Section 145-119, Schedule 19, Special Purpose Parking Zones, by adding a limited hours child drop-off pickup zone on the north side of Cynwyd Road from a point starting 34 feet west of Union Avenue and extending westerly the distance of 120 feet on Cynwyd Road. This ordinance was authorized for advertisement at a stated meeting of the Board of Commissioners held January 22nd, 2025, and duly advertised in the January 25th, 2025 edition of the Times Herald. Do I have a second? Commissioner Bernheim, thank you. Any questions or comments from my colleagues? Okay, seeing none, Madam Secretary, time for vote.
For the adoption of ordinance 4304, Mr. Bernheim.
Aye.
Mr. Courtney.
Yes.
Ms. Epstein.
Yes.
Mr. Gabbard.
Aye.
Mr. Grimes.
Yes.
Ms. G. Kramer.
Yes.
Dr. Rossman.
Aye.
Mr. Stevenson.
Aye.
Mr. Whalen.
Yes.
Mr. Sinai.
Yes.
The ordinance is duly adopted.
Okay, thank you, Madam Secretary. So what we're going to do now is we are going to recess the special Board of Commissioners meeting, because we're going to come back to this later, so we're not going to officially adjourn it. And we're going to turn to committee meetings, which means we're going to turn to the Police Committee meeting, and we're going to get to this topic that people want to comment on. And I recognize it's Vice Chair Commissioner Stevenson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Tonight, we have 3 items on the agenda. The first one is the authorization to advertise ordinance, Chapter 145, vehicles and traffic, Penwyn Road and Bolsover Road parking changes. The motion is to recommend that the Board of Commissioners authorizing the Township Secretary to advertise notice of intent to adopt the ordinance to amend the Code of the Township of Lower Merion, Chapter 145, entitled Vehicles and Traffic, Article 15, Schedules 145-115, Schedule 15, parking prohibited at all times to establish no parking during certain hours, regulation on the south side of Bolsover Road and Penwyn Road, and on the north side of Penwyn Road, from Penn Road to Saban Avenue, and to amend Article 15, Schedules 145-18, Schedule 18, parking time limits by establishing a 4-hour parking regulation from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m., except weekends on the south side of Penwyn Road and Saban Avenue on Bolsover Road, and to amend Article 15, Schedules 145-19, Schedule 19, special purpose parking zone by establishing school impacted zones in the place of student permit parking zones, and to establish a school impacted zone on both sides of Penwyn Road and Penn Road and the Saban Avenue, and to amend Article 12, applications of the usance of permits to remove provisions for student parking permits, and to provide for residential parking within a school-impacted zone. May I have a second?
Second.
Everybody says second. Thank you, Commissioner Epstein. We'll now ask our Director of Parking to give us an explanation.
Good evening, Commissioners. I hope to reduce that for the simplest terms for you here. What we had was a request from the residents of the 400 block of Penwyn Road for a 4-hour time zone on the street due to the impact of student parking on the street. I then commenced approximately a 50-day inspection, twice a day, once between 9 and 11 a.m. The school lunch window for the high school kids is between 11 and 1, and then between 1 and 3 p.m. I also did a follow-up inspection. At all times on the street, there were anywhere between 4 and 17 parking spaces available during these time windows. We averaged approximately 8 spaces open during these time windows during that 50-day period of inspection. So our initial sentiment was to come to you with this and ask you to deny this time zone request based on the availability of parking on the street. We did have several complaints, and we do have issues with students parking too far from the curb, too close to the driveways, and we did have our attendants and LMPD down there trying to enforce daily to make sure that we established what the rules were to be down there for standard parking. After a lot of these inspections were completed, the residents were very wise to bring to our attention that the Township Public Works Department was having a very difficult time getting the trash trucks down the street, as well as fire trucks. So that brought us to a public safety issue. We had traffic safety and the Lower Merion Police Fire Department. We did 2 runs through the street with fire trucks. It did not go well. Once the truck had to back out of the street because it could not pass. The first time we did get through the street, but it took approximately 2.5 to 3 minutes simply to enter the street from Sabine Avenue, and that is with no parking here to corner signs established in place and without vehicles parked on those corners. So the public safety issue became the primary issue moving forward. So what we bring to you right now is the Traffic Safety Department, the Fire Department, and Parking Services. We recommend reducing Bolsover Road, which has the exact same issues, to be restricted to one-side parking only, as well as Penwyn Road be restricted to one-side parking only. And we request this because it's not a matter of if there are 20 cars on the street. If there are 2 cars on this street and they are parked parallel to one another on opposite sides, The potential is very high that it would be very difficult for a trash truck and/or a fire truck to get through the street. And that's what we established when the fire department and the traffic safety division brought the fire trucks through the street. That is what we're recommending. We're also recommending providing the 4-hour time zone because, again, switching the street from parking on both sides to one side, it will consolidate parking on one side, so that would create an issue for residents having a place to park on the street somewhere within a reasonable distance of their home. The top section of Penwyn Road has a 4-hour time zone in place, and it has been very efficient at keeping cars off of Penwyn Road on that top section between Bolsover and Penn. The students were overwhelming that area, parking from radius to radius, and you all authorized us to stop that. So if you have any questions, please, the fire chief and police chief and traffic safety are here as well to answer any questions.
Thank you for your comments. I'm just going to say a couple of things before we start public comment. I know that there are several people here, and we will give you a chance. However, I want you to know there's a storm coming tonight, so we want to make sure that we get home tonight, all right? So if we can bring it home, it'll be great, all right? Thank you so much. So we are now open for public comment.
Just to pick up where I left off, I'm Peter Meltzer. I live on Penwyn Road, and while others may have comments as well, I think that my comments represent the unanimous opinion of all of the residents of Penwyn Road on both the longer side of the street and the shorter side of the street. There is some overlap, I believe, between the recommendations that have been made and what we support as well, including the no parking signs, also the creating the signage at the end of at the end of Penwyn Road to allow easy access for larger vehicles such as trash trucks and fire trucks. We have no issue with that. Also, we think that there should be a new school impacted zone, as was suggested, as well as the permits for two permits per resident. And since the signage has been put up on the shorter side of Penwyn Road, we've had no issues of any kind with passage of any types of vehicles. But we believe that where we disagree with the recommendation is sort of where the rubber meets the road is the issue of whether or not wider vehicles such as fire trucks or trash trucks can easily traverse down Penwyn Road, whether the longer side or the shorter side, without impediment. We believe there was one test done on January 7 of this year, which was a snowy day, and there was a lot of snow on the ground, and there was a couple students parked at almost diagonal to Penwyn Road, and that was it was difficult for the fire trucks to get by on that day. But on September 25th, 2024, my wife, who's an attorney who works at home, she had smelled gas in our home at 409, which is right in the middle of the longer part of the street, and also next door to 411. We called 911, and within minutes, 2 fire trucks came by. There were cars parked directly across the street from one another, but they were resident parkers who park well and not student parkers. They had no trouble getting down the street. Similarly, on October 24, the parking department conducted a test of the Narberth fire truck coming down the street with normal parking on both sides, exactly side by side across from each other. The truck flawlessly went down the street without any issue at all. And we think the only time there was sometimes an issue is when you have the student parkers that are rushing to get to school and park at odd angles. But we've measured the width of our street and compared with other nearby streets which have no one-side parking. One of them is Worcester Road, one of them is Almer Lane, both of which are a little narrower than our street. Neither one of them has one-sided parking. And that's where we think that what's really mandated here is to do another test that we can all see, because in our experience, fire trucks and trash trucks have no trouble going down our street when residents are parked there or when their people are parked a normal distance away from the curb. An upcoming date of February 14th or February 17th represents a normal residential parking day where 10 to 15 non-resident parkers haven't populated our street. And we've seen for ourselves that fire trucks can go down the street without impediment, even when 2 cars are parked directly across the street. But if you feel another test is necessary, that would be fine. But there's multiple problems with the one-side parking only, and that's where our entire block is opposed to this part of the proposition. We don't oppose the signage. We don't oppose making it easier for the cars to turn onto the street. It's the one side only that we really object to. It would basically take away 24 of our parking spots. It's a small street. There would be no accommodation for visitors, guests, child home workers, contractors, pickups, landscaping. If you have all the parking on one side of the street, it's going to be way too congested, and it's not practical. Most of our driveways are small little driveways that park maybe one or two cars, and it's not practical to stack our vehicles in single lane driveways, and visitors and contractors can easily take up the needed space for larger vehicles. We've also expressed concern about the bundle of property rights that we've relied on for years to protect our rights as homeowners and to retain the value of our properties. And we think that to have one-side parking and create these parking problems would negatively impact property valuations. And we don't think it's appropriate to take away 24 parking spots, which is going to create all kinds of congestion when we've never had any problems I've lived on this block for 30 years, as have a number of my neighbors. We've never had any issues until the students came along. That's the first time the issues came, and we think that if you can take care of the student problem, there's not going to be a problem for fire vehicles either accessing our street or traversing our street. And for us to lose 24 spots when, as I say, there's contractors coming by, would create a huge problem. And I also note, by the way, that the township ordinance allows that it says that item 7D from the Lower Merion Township Parking Services says that principals should have, residents should have accessible parking within a reasonable distance from their homes. Well, if we lose all these parking spots, we should not have to park. A permit parking is one thing, but if it's not a permit right by our house, it doesn't do us much good to have to park maybe on another street. That's not reasonable access to the homes. They don't have that on Almer. They don't have that on Worcester, both of which are narrower than our street, and neither one of which has this one-side parking restriction.
Sir, I'm going to ask you that if you can wrap it up, please.
Yes, I will.
Thank you.
So as I say, our block is unanimous in not opposing much of what has been proposed regarding the student signage, regarding the permits, regarding creating easy access onto the street, but we all feel that to impose this one-sided parking is draconian and unnecessary, and we are unanimously against that part of the proposal and believe it's unnecessary, and we can show that fire trucks can easily traverse our street even when cars are parked side by side across from one another, given the width of the street. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
No, thank you for your time. Anyone else? Please, come up, please.
Hi, everybody. My name's Alicia Picard. I'm fortunate enough to be a mother of 3 in this community in the public school system. Maybe I had the guts to come up here today because my son won the middle school spelling bee today, and he's going to be representing our community at the regionals. So it just felt like maybe it was a sign that I should have the bravery to get up here and say something. I'm also fortunate enough to be a doctor in our community, and I take care of anybody here who got into an accident and came to our local hospital. I might be the one reading your CAT scan or x-ray, or if anyone here got a mammogram, or anyone's mother or sister or needed a breast biopsy to diagnose breast cancer, they might be coming to me. I also grew up in this community, and what I want to say is just kind of from the human side of this, we've been on this road for 10 years. In previous years, so as a parent, I very much support students. In fact, I think it's wonderful for them to take opportunities to find a place to park so that they can feel grown up and drive to school. But the problem is when it ends up that there aren't a lot of options, and then one little 100-year-old tiny street with really short driveways with no garages ends up congested, and maybe the students don't have as much experience parking and have trouble parking in a way that makes sense and is safe, then you end up in what we've brought, very astutely as a safety situation. And I just want to say that when it was just resident and contractor parking, I mean, nobody cares more about whether a fire truck can get to your house than a mother with children. My youngest is in kindergarten. A few minutes could be the difference and save lives. But I have full confidence that the way things are in our little street, when it's just the residents and our visitors, we have just the right amount of parking. The 4 hours on both sides would bring it back to the way it was before, which was just residents and their visitors. And we never had an issue with maneuverability down the street. It's just the right amount of parking for the street. Everyone knows how to park to keep it safe. We care. We're not just throwing our cars there and running off. We care because it's our families that live there. So we're very careful about how we park to make sure that it's very easy to get by. We even call each other if there's a car that's too close to someone's driveway, or anything that seems of concern. We're a tight-knit community, and we call each other, and by definition, if it's just residents parking there, there's somebody in the house who runs out and moves the car. If there's any, or if it's their visitor, and someone came to, say a home health care worker came and they weren't sure how to park, someone brings it to our attention that, there's the car's not parked in a good space, and someone runs out and moves the car. So it's very different than having cars that are just left there in a parking annex. So I think the only change, I think it's a wonderful proposal. Really the only change is to give us a chance and to put 4-hour parking, instead of no parking anytime on one side, 4-hour parking, and bring it back to the way it always was, which was resident and guest parking, which is just the perfect amount. And you can run a test anytime, or as many as you like, and show that would adequately address the problem and keep everybody safe, and not put such a strain on our little tiny street and neighborhood, where if we had my mom coming over to visit, I was thinking, well, is it legally allowed for me to ask her to pull up on the grass on our front yard if there's no parking nearby because she has a bad hip? Put us in those sorts of situations where if we have someone that needs to care for trees, we have really old trees in our neighborhood, that they wouldn't be able to come and do that because there's no place legally for them to pull over. When our kids have piano lessons, we use a local neighborhood business, and they come and park on the street. So that's all I had to say. Thank you for your time, everybody. Go Birds.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, I'm Colleen Wortley. I'm 404 Penwyn. My name's on the petition. I just wanted to make comment, although there's 9 residence homes that we're talking about, there's also 4 other properties that their properties have a pretty good signage property line on Penwyn Road. And that would be the sides, the Breslow's, Deep Pasquale, and Groenberg. They're on the 2 that are on the Dogleg Penwyn, and 2 are on the Sabine, and this also affects them, even though they cannot be on the petition because they technically aren't Penwyn Road. Go Birds.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Nancy Potts, and I live on Bolsover Road. I speak only for myself because I don't think the people on my street know about this issue. The folks on Penwyn have a vocal group of people who have advanced the petition, and
I'm sorry.
that's okay. Those of us on Bolsover appear to have been left out, although, let me just say this. We share a driveway with somebody on Penwyn, the small part of Penwyn that runs to Penn. The front of our yard, we have a very long front yard. We're like a triangle with the long side on the street. And we are not bothered by the student parking. We're opposed to the 4-hour limit. We're opposed to the one-sided parking. We think the whole thing is a tempest in a teapot. We think the residents have not had any problems finding parking. I watch every morning after my run as residents pull their cars into the street and park in the street in the morning. I'm not sure why. But when the students arrive, there are problems occasionally where they park away from the curb, and we just try to train them to park properly. I did see one time that a trash truck could not get down the street, but I do understand that the last 2 times the fire truck test was run, one time it was able to get down the street, I think 2 times ago, and then this last time it had problems. So, I mean, safety is obviously a very important issue. My regret is that we've gotten to this point because of a vocal number of people who advanced the petition on Penwyn who don't speak for those of us on Bolsover, although now we're also impacted, unfortunately. Thank you. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Yes, please.
My name is Steve. I'm also on Penwyn Road. The original petition that we brought forth was for Penwyn Road, and the reason it was for Penwyn Road is because we understood that only the residents of that particular street had to set it. So we started with Penwyn Road, and somehow it got to Bolsover Road. Don't ask me how that happened, but it was originally Penwyn Road, so apologize for Bolsover not being on it, but we had no choice. We couldn't have filed it at all if we tried to file for Bolsover. The other thing is just a personal thing. I moved in 20 years ago, and it was a real beautiful, comfortable street to be on. With the students coming and everything else there, it's been really hectic, and I feel almost like I'm living in the city instead of on the main line. And that's changed, and changing it by putting students away, great, but by building up everything onto one side of the street, it's going to create almost the exact same thing. I'll feel like we're in Philadelphia, which is not why we moved here. And I just wanted to say that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else? Joe, is anyone online?
No one online has their hand raised.
Okay. So now, at this point, we will move to commissioners, and we'll start with Commissioner Whalen.
Thank you very much, Acting Chairman Stevenson.
Thank you.
Emphasis on the acting, but you're doing a great job. All humor aside, this is a very serious question. This board, I think, will not be surprised to hear me say that I'm very much opposed to this. I will reiterate extremely long comments that I've made, I think, 4 times before as I thought about this. While I completely support traffic safety, I think this is misdirected. And I think this situation that we see all these residents now in front of us, and we've seen it time and again, this is our creation, not those of us immediately sitting on this board. This has been, I went back as far as I could, I think 25 years of decisions by this board to say nobody can park on Roberts Road, nobody can park on Worcester Road, Schoolhouse Lane, Church Road. We just keep going out in an ever-increasing circle with this misbelief that students aren't going to park to then go to the high school. And they don't care how far out they go. It's just cool to drive your car and all your friends instead of taking the bus. And so no matter how far we push this out, and ma'am, I'm glad to hear that Bolsover Road isn't impacted yet. I hate to tell you, you're next, right? Like we have literally seen this go out and out and out, and it is because this board has had a very erratic and piecemeal review process with individual petitions coming when the next street is affected, right? This is just an extended domino, and it's now on you guys, and that's not fair. It's this board's decisions. Now, this has come, I did some background research. So requirements have come into play over the last 30 years, wherein my understanding is the high school administration and school district administration has essentially tripled in the number of staff members that they've had to have in the last 30 years to meet various requirements and things like that. Those people all need to be able to park to do their job. So they park at the high school. There are that many fewer parking spots at the high school. We have a very limited number of parking spots, and year over year, you have more and more students who have cars who can drive, and they're going to keep driving. So, you know, we've all heard the argument, oh, well, let's just force the kids to take the school bus. That would be great, but it's not realistic, and all we keep doing is foisting off our responsibility to lead here and make decisions of policy onto the next set of residents. That's not fair of us. I apologize for it. Once again, I request that this board, I'll chair it, starts a ad hoc parking committee. We have seen it with the lights and everything else. This essentially comes from a lot of houses who surround a high school, which is wonderful, not wanting students and high school students to park on their streets. And we've allowed that. We've supported that time and again. And eventually we all, I think, on this board have made the decision, well, we'll support the residents, we'll kick it from that street to the next street. Therefore, eventually the students will not drive. I have two students who don't drive to the school, but they both go to the high school. They wish they had a car to drive to the school, and they would walk as far as they could and wouldn't care whether it's all, you know, next it's going to go from Bolsover out to Wynwood, and we're going to be getting the same kind of conversation. We need to stop, and we need to step back, and we need to use our wonderful traffic safety group to take a new holistic view of this entire area. And I know this really falls heavily on Commissioner Courtney, so I've been looking over at him, this is your ward, and make a policy that makes sense for everybody at large and not one individual street each time, because, you know, and maybe this passes tonight because, you know, you're a wonderful group of residents, you shouldn't necessarily bear the burden of where this stops, but I will not vote for it just to make a statement that this has to stop somewhere, and we need to, again, have an ad hoc committee to address this, reassess all of the parking requirements around and basically anywhere surrounding the high school so that we can actually get our arms around this and lead as to a policy. So, thank you.
Thanks. Commissioner Courtney.
Hey. Thank you, Commissioner Stevenson. I'll start with a little bit more gratitude. Thank you to all the residents who spoke tonight and who've talked with me over the past year about these issues, helping me understand it, and working with me and the other staff on the township to try to improve this situation. And thank you to Jerry and to Chief McCoy. You fielded a ton of emails, answered a bunch of questions, and I hope you will indulge me in a few more tonight, which will probably repeat some things I put in my email. But to start, I agree with 99% of what Commissioner Whalen just said. He's exactly right. Like, the reason this problem exists is because of our piecemeal approach to resident concerns about the impacts of Lower Merion High School traffic. Right, it's not just students, it's also the parents doing drop-offs and waiting in the wrong place, blocking driveways, that sort of thing. And it was well-meaning of this board to waive certain parking requirements at Lower Merion High School. It was well-meaning of this board to adjust parking restrictions on Owen and Worcester in the streets, Fairhill, Hathaway, you know, and it's just sort of expanded out exactly like Commissioner Whalen said. But I think he's right. We have to stop doing this and take a more holistic approach, and not just around Lower Merion High School, around Harrington High School as well. We've dealt with similar issues out there with parking restrictions. So what I would ask us to do tonight, though, is sort of like separate this student parking issue from what we're discussing, which is also a public safety and a township level of service issue, right? So when the petition first came in and Jerry did his analysis, I asked also for a safety review because we saw, I mean, when we talked about this a year ago, I showed you pictures of refuse trucks barely able to get down the road. It is a two-way road, but there is no way two cars can get past each other if there are cars parked on both sides. And so I asked for a review from the fire department to sort of see, you know, in absence of a parking issue, does the increased density of parking cause a problem for us in terms of providing services and maintaining the safety of the residents? And so the chief was good enough to do some analysis for me, and he's here tonight. Would you mind if I asked you a few questions? The first one is sort of addressing what we've heard from the residents this evening who have lived there for decades, and why hasn't this safety issue come up before?
It's never been brought to our attention. We really did not go block to block looking for this. This was brought to our attention to do a test. We brought the fire apparatus in the block to do the test, so that's how we became aware of the problem.
Okay, and so in a previous conversation that I had around the width of this street, it sort of became apparent that you wouldn't be able to build a street this narrow in Lower Merion anymore. But there are many examples of streets this narrow, probably even less wide in Lower Merion, that don't have parking restrictions. And so are we now becoming aware that there is a fire safety, public safety issue sort of widespread in the township?
I don't know widespread. I know there's been a couple more streets that have been brought to our attention, and we're working with traffic safety to evaluate them also.
So, is there a plan to review, the planning department must know the width of every street in the township, review the township for every street that might qualify for this kind of safety problem and adjust the parking?
I can't talk for planning department. I mean, I think that it's a case-by-case basis. This was brought to our attention through this test. The new ones were brought to our attention from another fire company, so we're now working with traffic safety to vet each individual circumstance.
And is your criteria going to be solely the width of the road and the parking, or will there be other? I mean, I imagine that there are roads in Gladwin that are this narrow but very sparsely parked. Are we going to say you can't park on one side of those roads?
I think we're going to do a test on each street that comes to our attention. And if we're not able to get down the block as we did this last test, we're going to need to adjust it. We're going to need to have a conversation about how do we make the block safe to put a fire truck down the street.
I guess since the planning department isn't here, I could direct this question to the township manager. Do we have the data on the width of every road in the township, and is it our intention to check every road in this way?
I don't want to speak for the planning department exactly either, but no, there's no plan currently to check every road in the township. And many roads in the township do not have parking on them, particularly when you get out into the western reaches. They're narrow roads, but they don't have parking on either side. So no, every road will not be analyzed, but certainly from a public safety standpoint, when brought to our attention by the fire companies or by residents or by commissioners, we're going to want to take a look and make sure we can get these fire apparatus down the street. Chief didn't say it, but fire apparatus have gotten bigger. They're no longer the size they were 10, 15 years ago.
So I guess I'm having trouble understanding just how much of a safety concern this is. Well, no. I understand that you've assessed Penwyn Road. I think it's unsafe in the current condition. But it feels like we're being a bit blasé about the rest of the township, and we're going to address it if somebody brings it up.
If I may, as a point of order, please. With all due respect to Commissioner Courtney, you may have a larger issue that needs to be addressed, but we only have one item before us tonight, this one particular street. And I don't know, Chief McCoy, if you can give us, what is your assessment? Does this need to be done? Not? I mean, from a fire safety standpoint.
So we went with public safety, myself, the police department, and conducted 2 tests on the street. Both times we came in off Sabine Road, turned right into Penwyn. Both times were delayed getting into the block. The first time they were able to maneuver down the block and exit the block on the Penwyn on the Penn Road. The second time we're not able to maneuver into the block. We went in about 30 feet and stopped, where we would start damaging cars and fire trucks. We backed out of the street, went around the block, came in off Penn Road, made the turn right on the Penwyn, and we could not get into the top end of the block. Traffic on both sides of the street stopped that. So we weren't even going to attempt that without, again, causing more damage. So that block right then and there gave us the opportunities that we need to adjust this. Public safety, through the police department, parking services, they're the ones that create the parking and the ordinances and what goes from there. We brought the fire truck, we found a problem, now we'll address it.
Okay. So what I'm getting at with those questions, and you're right, Commissioner Bernheim, we're only addressing this one this evening, but I want to raise that there's a potential issue. Was something that the township manager just said, that those roads in Gladwin probably don't have anybody parked on them. And my question is, and this is what the residents have been asking me, if this road were sparsely parked the way it used to be, would we still have this safety issue? And I had requested that over the holidays you take a look at it, and you did. You didn't bring the truck down, and you took an initial look at it. And I'm wondering, there's about to be another school holiday next week. Friday and Monday, no school. Could we do a test of the road on one of those days where the parking conditions will probably be more like they were a few years ago?
I think we always can do a test, but we have data in front of us that says when we tried to do our test, we could not get down the street. We videotaped it, we showed it, it became an issue right then and there.
Right, the request is, you did your test on a school day with the parking as dense as it is right now. With the parking restrictions requested by the residents and the parking restrictions recommended by our parking department, with the exception of the parking on the one side of the street, the parking levels would return to what they were a few years ago. And so my request and the request of the residents is that we try to get the truck down the road at that parking level as opposed to the current level.
We can always do the test, but we still have to address the issue that was already on the table here. We could not get down the street the one time we did one of our tests out of the 2 times in the last 6 weeks. Again, we don't set the parking parameters. I just brought the truck to do the test.
I'll try one more time to be very explicit. When you did your test, there were cars lining both sides of the road because it was a school day. My request is that you do a test not on a school day where the parking is more at a level closer to what it was a few years ago, and what it would be with the requested restrictions.
I think we always do a test. As I said to you in my email, having a pre-planned test doesn't give us real data.
Don't tell us whether it's going to be Friday or Monday. All right. So, just I'll wrap up now. I'm going to vote on your recommendation. You tell me there's a safety problem. You're the head of the fire department in this township. I have to respect your expertise here. I'm not, what Commissioner Whalen said aside, I'm not going to ignore the fact that my fire chief says that this road is unsafe. So I'm going to support the recommendation this evening, but between now and the Board of Commissioner meeting in 2 weeks, I would really love to see an attempt at what the residents have requested. Thank you.
Sir, unfortunately, public comment is over, so we won't be able to allow you to ask questions from the floor. Yes, Commissioner Kramer.
Commissioner Whalen took most of the words out of my mouth because we've seen over and over again where if we restrict parking on one street, parking becomes a problem on the next street. My concern here is that if we restrict the parking on this street, are we just going to be pushing student parking to even narrower streets where it's going to present even more of a problem for the fire trucks? And that's an issue I would like to see assessed before we vote on this. And the second question I have is, can't we ticket improperly parked cars? If the cars are not close enough to the curb and are out, 2 feet from the curb and are blocking the way of traffic, can't our traffic enforcement people ticket them and stop that type of behavior? So, all right, those are my 2 questions/comments, and then I'd like to make a motion that we table this pending another safety study and an assessment of the impact it's going to have on narrower streets nearby.
Second.
So there's a motion on the floor and seconded. Are there any comments?
But no, you don't comment because it's not for a date certain. It's yea or nay. No, unless it's a date
All right,
certain.
yes.
So it's yea or nay.
It's yea and nay. All those in favor of the motion on the floor?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
And Scott, all those opposed? Motion carries. What's the number, Jody?
And I wasn't counting as I was going along. It was like 8:58.
7-3?
8-3. It was
7-3.
7-3.
I don't know what Scott did.
Scott was in
In
favor of
favor.
tabling.
He was in favor.
So let's say he was in favor.
10,
That's
11,
8-3.
8-3.
So, we are, what's that? So, I need some clarification. This is tabled, however, do we table until when?
She said,
There was no date, she just tabled it.
she said tabled until we get more another test of the safety and an assessment of how this will impact the rest of the student parking if we do place these restrictions.
And I would hope that it would come back promptly if there is a safety issue.
What would be our
So-
next police committee meeting, if I may ask?
That would
March.
be March 12th.
So, I mean, it's been tabled, I believe it's been tabled, we'll
Yes.
go and reconvene and figure out when to bring it back, but like, we didn't have the opportunity to discuss it.
Yes, so this is tabled, and then what we will do, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. President, we will set a date for when this would come back, in
Yeah.
possibly in March.
Yeah, one would hope we can bring it back as soon as possible, but I think there was a request for information, so we need to
Right.
collect that.
As soon as possible.
Okay, all right, so we're moving on to the next agenda item. Next agenda item is the authorization to advertise ordinance, Chapter A164, Civil Service Commission, Rules and Regulations, Police Officer College Credit Requirements, and to implement police hiring incentives. So, the motion on the floor is to recommend the Board of Commissioners approve of the following actions. Authorizes the Township Secretary to advertise notice of intent to adopt an ordinance to amend the Code of the Township of Lower Merion, Chapter A164, Civil Service Commission, Rules and Regulations, A164-24, General Qualifications, to remove application requirements of 60 hours from the accredited college or university for 5 years, experience with a municipal or state police force, to amend A161-38, General Qualifications for Civil Service Promotion, to require 60 credit hours from an accredited college or university for the promotion to senior class officer, and to amend A164-41.1, Civil Service Promotion of Class A Police Officer, to provide that a Class A police officer 1 year of service and 60-year hours from an accredited college or university shall be promoted to senior class police officer if qualified. B, eliminate the $30 application fee to take the police civil service hiring test. C, offer a $5,000 bonus for a new police officer hires according to the following schedule effective with the next civil service police hired exam. $1,000 at signing, accepting, and meeting the terms of a conditional offer of employment. $1,500 upon successful completion of a 15-week field training officer program. $2,500 upon completion of probationary period. And the township will reserve the right to recover any funds awarded to any newly sworn entry-level police officer who voluntarily resigns before the successful completion of their probation. May I have a second? Thank you, Commissioner Kramer. So, Superintendent Block, will you please explain this for us, please?
Yes, good evening, Commissioner Stevenson. Thank you for having us this evening regarding this agenda item. So what we're trying to do with the police department is to open up the candidate pool from when we advertise for our entry-level examinations. Right now it happens twice a year. There's a spring recruitment and a fall recruitment. The numbers generally over the last 5 years have been coming in at approximately 150 applicants that make the initial application. Maybe 80% of those will show up for the written examination. We will lose obviously some through the written process, and then there's also the physical agility process where we'll lose other candidates because they don't pass that part of the examination process. And we also have people that just simply register and don't show up for the examination, which is disappointing. So in these last recruitment campaigns, we end up having 40 to 50 people that pass that go through the background investigations. As a result of that, we're seeing very, very few candidates that are passing the background investigation and the polygraph examination. So our thought here is to remove the requirements of the 60 credits to apply for entry-level police officer, and also the other part of that with the ordinance is also remove the 5 years of full-time police experience with another law enforcement agency. We hope to open up the pool candidate with that. Also, with that, I think we'll see more minority candidates coming in as well, because we do have statistics that show that not all minority candidates have the ability to go to college or get the 60 credits. So the 60 credits are being removed for the entry level, but we are proposing here that in order to get to the senior police officer rank, you will need the 60 credits, and you can obtain that over the 5 years. And I think the signing bonus, if it's implemented, would assist with the college credits that are needed, under the proposed ordinance itself. Plus, there is also in the collective bargaining agreement, the officers do have the ability to have tuition reimbursement as well in this. So that's our motivation right now with it. And it's not just here in Lower Merion. I speak with other colleagues. I did a survey. 27 police departments in the region were surveyed, and out of the 27, only 6 required the 60 credits to be had to apply for the police department. So we're seeing less and less of that. And I know the Montgomery County Consortium, Community Consortium police examination is coming up this weekend. There's 12 departments that are registered for it, and currently they have 112 applications. And that doesn't bode well as far as how many people have signed up. But we would like to try this for at least the next 2 cycles to see what it yields with, gaining more applicants.
Great, thank you. So the floor is now open for public comment.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is John Yushevitz, and I'm the president of the Fraternal Order of Police Lodge 28, which represents over 250 active and retired police officers of Lower Merion Township in the Arbor Borough. Policing is a noble profession, and Lower Merion Township Police Department stands as one of the finest law enforcement agencies, not only in this Commonwealth, but also in our great nation. Like many municipalities across the Commonwealth and across the United States, we're facing staffing challenges due to difficulties in recruiting well-qualified applicants. It's critical and crucial at this time to continue to fill the ranks of the Lower Merion Township Police Department with individuals that are dedicated to serving and protecting the public. The elimination of the college credit requirement for application opens the door to a rewarding career for many who may have been unable to pursue this path otherwise. This change will enable us to draw from a broader and more diverse pool of candidates, enriching our department with individuals from all backgrounds, from all experiences, and all walks of life. We, as a union, firmly believe that removing this barrier will not compromise the quality of our applicants, but rather enhance it. The selection process for becoming a Lower Merion Township police officer remains rigorous and thorough, ensuring that only the most qualified individuals are chosen to serve this great township. By broadening our applicant pool, we increase the likelihood of attracting individuals who bring valuable life experiences, diverse perspectives, and commitment to public service. This will result in a department that is stronger, more representative of our community, and better equipped to meet the challenges of our modern policing. This introduction of the introduction of no fee for application, the signing bonus, and 3 stages will further incentivize qualified candidates to apply, contributing to our goal of strengthening our department and ensuring that we continue to serve the community and provide our same excellent quality service that we provide now. Under the leadership of Superintendent Andrew Block, We've already seen improvements in the department's morale and implementation of new recruitment initiatives and strategies. These efforts will be undoubtedly lead to an increase in both the number and the quality of applicants, as well as a greater diversity within our department. We look forward to welcoming new officers to both our police department and our union. These recruits will represent the diversity and strength of our great nation, the United States of America. Thank you very much. I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Joe, any on Zoom?
No one has their hand raised.
No one has their hand raised. All right. Mr. Byrd?
Thank you very much, Commissioner Stevens. A couple things I want, if I may. Well, some people may have noticed that Officer Ishkowitz is a regular, attendee of our meetings. First time for a while that he has spoken, and I'm glad you did, because what you talked about is something I think is an excellent idea. And time has come to recognize that adjusting the 60 credit hours is needed in order to enhance the possibility of recruiting officers, just as you articulated so very well. I think dovetailed with that is also in the back end something that I know has been part of the negotiations that Superintendent Block you've talked about, and that's some type of tuition and reimbursement for those people who are there so they can get that type of education, which only enhances not just the police force in the township, but those individuals. And tying those two things together, I think, is important. I have two questions for you. It has been historic that there be a lot of applications, and then surprisingly, less, like 50% or something like that actually show up. So I don't know if the $30 fee is actually going for some administrative costs, which is appropriate for those costs that are being incurred, and if that's really going to impact things one way or the other. Meaning, if you don't have the fee, is that going to enhance the number of people that apply? My guess, and I underline the word guess, is probably not. So I don't know if waiving that fee actually does anything other than, we just incur a cost that maybe we shouldn't incur. So hold that thought. I'll let you respond to everything all at once. Then the way the $5,000 bonus works, the first is just for the signing bonus. But if you don't make it through the next level because of the physical aspect of it, then you don't get any more of the bonuses. Would it make sense to then combine that 1,000 and the next 1,500? Say, look, you sign, you pass the next test, then you get 2,500. So we're making sure maybe we're getting people who actually are qualified and then have earned, in essence, that bonus. If I said that so you understand it, or was that?
No, yes, I understand it. So the first question you asked
is the fee. Does that make a difference?
We want to see if that impacts, again, bringing in more candidates for the examination. And the way that works is we are billed for the actual examination. So if 300 people sign up, and let's say only 250 come for the examination, we're only paying for 250 exams. We're not paying for that. We'll return them. So again, we're looking at the the data that we're going to hopefully receive in a very positive manner over the next testing cycles, and that's one of the things. Plymouth Township Police Department just recently did this, where they rolled back the application fee and some of the other requirements, and they had well over 400 candidates that sat for the examination, which it opened everybody's eyes in the county on that. We've had significant discussions about the application of the bonus if it's approved, and there's benchmarks, and that's what we looked at, that we want the candidate to make these benchmarks. So the first benchmark is you get through your conditional offer of employment, and you receive the first of the three payments for the bonuses. One is the $1,000. You'll go through the field training program. When you complete that, you'll receive another $1,500. When you complete your probation, you're at $2,500. So there's benchmarks there.
Do you think that will help induce people to actually sign up and then go through the process, as opposed to saying, all right, I've done the exam, I'm not going any further? I'm just trying to link it together.
No, I think it is. I think it's a positive aspect to bring people in. There's not many police departments right now in the region that are offering these bonuses. Philadelphia offers a pretty significant one, but it's based on the starting salary, and that's why it's so high, but their starting salary is nowhere near ours, and that's why I think with the recruitment we're doing and the grant money we just received, to enhance our recruitment strategies will help with that, to say that this is the premier police department you want to work for. You want to work here, nowhere else.
Right. Okay. Yeah, well, I would think someone would want to work here versus Philadelphia any day of the week. So, all right, well, thank you very much. I think it's a great idea, and from soup to nuts has my endorsement.
Thank you. Anyone else? Commissioner Garrett.
Thank you, Commissioner Stevenson. So, Superintendent Block, I think overall the intention is absolutely right. Like whatever we can do to bring in more applicants, better applicants, keep the standards high. We have high standards and we need to have high standards and we should maintain that. We've heard from you, we've heard from the Fraternal Order of Police that dropping the college credit requirement will not harm our high standards and in fact make it even better potentially. And I think that's absolutely right. I have a problem or a challenge with maintaining that requirement to be promoted. So if we are going to be getting wonderful candidates without the college credits, and I think that's absolutely right, they do a wonderful job as a police officer, they are up for promotion, and there are opportunities. They could have gone out and gotten their education, but maybe they're working, maybe they have kids at home, maybe they're doing all this other stuff, and on top of work, to then get 60 credit hours is really difficult to do for a lot of people. If they are wonderful officers, if we're bringing them in, they're meeting our standards, they come in, they continue meeting our standards, I don't see why they, at that point, need 60 college credits to get promoted. If our standards are our standards, and that's just a kind of a tool that's used to help find our standards, if the standards are standards, if they meet the standards for promotion, they should meet the standards with or without the college credit. So I don't understand why that's still in there to get a promotion.
So that's an excellent question. And one of the things we look at is professional development once we hire our police officers. We're not reducing the standard here, as I've spoken before about this very passionately. The standard is in the background investigation. Whether you come through with just a high school diploma or if you have a master's degree or a PhD, if you don't pass that standard, and it's a very high standard that will never be reduced, you're not going to become a police officer with Lower Merion Police. That's the first and foremost with the standards itself. Professional development is extremely important for all of our officers that come in when they're hired, and we want to move them through the ranks and we want to find out where their specialties are. And part of that is there's technical training that we offer. There is a management training that we offer. We have a sergeant and a lieutenant at Northwestern's University School of Police Staff and Command right now. These are all part of professional development, and I fully believe in it. That's why we're moving the requirement for the credits up into the promotional areas, because it's professional development. And it's also, we're taking it out as the entry level, but in order to get to senior police officer, you're going to need it. So there's also a financial incentive there for those officers to get the credits to move forward if they want financially as well, and also professionally. They're the things we look at. Being a former adjunct instructor for a university, the online platforms are just about everywhere right now. So they make it convenient for the full-time working individual where they can sign up and go through these classes and obtain their 60 credits or their associate's degree or bachelor's degree, whatever they may choose to do, and they can do it. A lot of the universities and colleges now accommodate, the people that are working 40+ hours a week to do that. And like I said, a former adjunct instructor in that, majority of the people in my classes were either police, fire, EMS, employed in that or had that background.
And that makes sense, but and I agree, professional development with whatever career, whether it's police, attorney, architect, it doesn't matter. Professional development is really important. You continue learning, you continue growing. Is it possible that an officer can do the technical training, can do the management training, and still not get 60 hours of college credits?
The 60 credits.
Right.
Well, some of that does apply. So
some of it applies.
Some of it will, and I'll use right now, we have some people at Northwestern University for that school. When they come back, there are credits that can be applied. If they're in a college program where they're working towards a degree, that part of that professional development can be used to obtain that.
I fully get that can apply towards the 60 credits. We have, financing that can help with that. There are online courses that make it convenient, but why require it? So if they're doing the technical training, they're doing what they're supposed to do. They're meeting their standards. They're a leader. They're doing, they're getting commendations. They're doing everything. Why put this extra burden on if it's not as important? If it's not important enough to become an officer, why is it important enough to get promoted?
Because we're moving people into supervisory level and management levels, and I think it's appropriate then to say that you need the college background, the college education when you get into those positions as supervisors, as sergeants and lieutenants and captains, for supervisory and management positions, because there's more responsibility you have, not only as being a police officer, but now you have the responsibility to supervise and or manage different divisions and platoons. So I personally feel that that's important when you're moving into a supervisory position or a management position.
That standard shouldn't drop, right? If you are moving into a supervisory or a management position, you should be able to handle that, right? And there are a lot of ways to measure it. Saying you need 60 credits in whatever, right? We don't have a set standard of what those 60 credits should be in or have to be in, correct?
Correct.
They could be in art history if you're really interested. I can't imagine that that's going to happen. They could be in anything. That will not make you a better supervisor, I don't think, if you get 60 credits in art history. Where if you're doing your technical training, if you're doing your management training, if you're doing leadership training, if you're doing all of the right things, it's just, there is a disconnect between saying we don't need it, we can get wonderful officers in who don't have it, but we can't get wonderful supervisors unless they have it. That disconnect is just not making sense to me.
No, but I do think we're going to get, top-notch supervisors, because it's not just dealing with having the college credits, because when you go to college and you take some of the classes, it shows you how to think differently and look at things, in a multifocal fashion, which is a good thing. And then there's also the internal testing that goes on as well. Civil service requires for supervisors and management that they have to sit and take the written and the oral interviews. So there's processes that are here that are built upon it. I think with their professional development and moving forward through the college platforms, it will help them when they get to those levels if they make the decision to take those examinations.
Okay, I'm seeing it very differently.
Can I ask you a question?
Absolutely.
And it may be out of line, but would you hire a superintendent without having any college background?
If they met all the standards, yes.
And what are their standards?
That they,
point of order here.
I think this is a really important, I think it's a really important discussion.
That's why it's a good dialogue.
His meeting.
No, and I think, to me.
Feel free, this is not right.
No,
Okay, thank you.
Well, I have other questions. So moving off this, so I disagree with the part of that you need college credits to be promoted. I'd like to make an amendment taking that piece out of this whole motion. I'm happy to read it, but taking that piece, the 60 credit hour requirement to get a promotion, I'd like to make a motion to amend this to take that piece out of it.
So are you
Yes, I'm making an amendment, I'm proposing an amendment.
all right,
That takes that out.
is there a second?
Okay, then forget that. The other part that the $5,000 bonus. We've talked.
No, I'm just raising my hand to be recognized.
Okay, yes,
Thank you.
all right, thank you.
The other part of this, I'm fine on the application fee. If that encourages more people, wonderful. That's what we need to do. The $5,000 bonus, we've talked about, we have a very high starting salary. We've talked about we have a premier department. That is all absolutely true. I'm skeptical that adding a $5,000 bonus is the correct way to encourage more people to apply, more people to accept. To me, it's not if people are going to accept a position here, they know they're getting paid very well to do that. There are other factors, right? I think bringing you in is a huge factor. I think, we talked about how the morale in the department is up, right? We just heard that before. That's wonderful. That should bring people in, and it's going to take time to do, and I think that's amazing. To me, I would rather see that money as a bonus for police officers who refer people in and bring in new people, or other ways to bring in people, finding opportunities to reach out to people we aren't already doing. Police officers know police officers, lawyers know lawyers, accountants know accountants. That's a great way to bring people in, and if we can encourage our officers who are really happy, whose morale is now up, to bring in other officers and say, you really should be working here. This is a great department to work in. We train you, we're premier, blah, 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 all that. To me, I'd rather spend the money on that and then saying somebody who's getting really high paid gets slightly a little more high paid. That doesn't really do it to me. I am fully in favor of doing what we can and being creative. I don't think this hits the mark as this is written, so I'm going to vote against it. I'm guessing I'm going to be in the minority, and I'm absolutely fine with that. And I hope we continue to look at ways. I don't think this is the right way, and we should build upon this and do a lot more. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Zoloff, I know you were trying to speak.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. My remarks will be, I suspect, somewhat shorter than Commissioner Gavrin. I applaud I support the creative approach to increasing the applicant pool for our police department. It is a challenge not only here, but regionally and nationally, as we have heard. But I have concerns about changing the standards for educational level and the 60 college credits. I also want to point out or offer this, that, an applicant for the police department who's graduated from high school at age 18 isn't able to come to work for us until age 21. What do they do in that 3-year period? I mean, there are many things, working, getting college credits, but the maturity that we expect from a 21-year-old is enhanced by the attending college, taking courses, getting college credits. We live in a community with very high expectations for our police department. We live in a community that wants our police to be well trained, and we do that. But also comes with that the maturity of how a police officer interacts with members of this community. And so I think there are benefits to the 60 credits. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know if the bonus, we don't know if the fee waiver, we don't know if the waiver of the 60 credits for a new hire is going to make a difference. And the memo that we got from management said we should try this and we can review it. So I think that if we go along with the recommendation of staff to make these 3 changes, then we should be clear that we expect management to report back annually on the effectiveness of these changes. And so I would like to amend, accordingly, I'd like to amend the motion. Commissioner Stevenson, is it now a good time for me to propose an amendment?
Yes.
I would move that the Police Committee ask management to report annually on the effectiveness of the removal of the 60 college credits in increasing the number of applicants for police officer.
Second.
Motion's been made and second. All those in favor?
Discussion.
We didn't discuss the last one.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so
Mr.
so I would like Mayor Jim McNeely perhaps to address that first.
I think that's our intent. That's always been our intent since we began talking about this. We're going to do it, but if the board wants to add that as an additional provision to the action, it's just following our intent anyway.
Thank you. So I support this. I corresponded with Commissioner Zeloff earlier. I agree that the township would have been doing this reporting anyway, but I think it certainly does not hurt to require it. I think our intent is that we review it at the end of every year, and we wouldn't want it to just sort of like disappear into like the kind of stuff that we just like automatically do without it being required to be elevated. And the kinds of things that I would like to see would be what the educational attainment of the different applicants are, the acceptance rate by that educational attainment. I can send this to you later so you don't have to write it all down. The yield, because we worry about pulling through, the applicants to getting to be successful officers, right? So we want to see like what our yield is by that. And also just, as we gain years of experience, what our experience is about whether those officers actually do take, college credits later when they're actually employed here. I think that'd all be good information to have to help us evaluate this going forward. Do you have advice about whether this should be an amendment or separate motion? Does it matter?
It doesn't really matter. I mean, it might be cleaner separately, but you can add it together.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Stevenson. I'm going to support this tonight, but I did want, because of the recommendation of our superintendent, I trust what you've said this evening and what you've said in our private sessions about that this will not impact your ability to vet the quality of the candidates. But I am somewhat torn, and it's really a broader issue in my mind. I work in technology, and some of the leaders in my field who are now quite influential in the federal government have called to question the value of higher education overall, and they do it in a way where it is promoting a social and class divide. And I am worried that we are inadvertently contributing to that by what we are doing here tonight. By not requiring our police force to have a college education, we are inadvertently devaluing what it means to have higher education. And so, that being said, I think it is important that we hear, hopefully, that there has been no impact to the quality of our force based on this decision. So that's why I support this annual requirement. And then I also wanted to lend my support to what Commissioner Bernheim brought up earlier, that I would really love to see us pursue a tuition reimbursement program for those officers who want to pursue higher education before joining the force and even after joining the force. And so I would urge you, Superintendent, to bring something to us in the next budget cycle this fall that will allow us to give tuition reimbursement to our officers.
That is in the Office of Collective Bargaining Agreement right now. They do have a
Great.
for
Awesome.
some tuition reimbursement.
I apologize for not being better educated on that particular topic, but I'm glad to hear that that exists. And thank you very much.
So I'm going to do a rare point of order from me here. Just to make sure, we're discussing Commissioner Zoloff's amendment right now, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we're, thank you.
Sorry,
Would you cite the amendment again, please? Loudly and clearly.
Yes.
Again, or Jody, do you have it?
I do have it.
Okay.
Motion to amend to include a requirement for management to report annually on the effectiveness of the college credits in increasing the number of applicants.
In the removal of the college credit.
Removal.
Right, of the removal of the college credits.
So you want to remove the college credits?
Yes.
I'm not
That's-
saying I want to, I'm saying that the management has to report on the effectiveness of the removal of the college credits in increasing the number of applicants.
Annual review. Just an annual review, but what about the college credits? Kind of brought into this.
An annual review of the removal of college credits. Yes.
So the college, my understanding is if the college credits are removed, there will be an annual review provided to the board on the metrics of what we have coming in and the data.
Or whether they come up to.
If I could, did the number of applicants increase?
Correct.
I mean,
That's
the
her
point of the
goal.
removal of the
That's her
credit.
whole goal.
I'm gonna pull this back together. We're gonna, all right.
Well, then people need the opportunity to comment
Oh,
on
no,
the
I mean,
amendment.
I'm sorry. I'm gonna bring it back together, let people comment, then we're gonna vote. All
On the
right?
amendment.
On the amendment, yes,
On the
on the amendment.
I have no comment.
If I may,
Yes.
right. The only issue or maybe two, that I have with the amendment, one, it says report on the quote effectiveness. That's drawing a conclusion. What we want is the data that President Sinai indicated, which I think we would get in the natural course of events. So while I don't believe we really need to do this, it's probably like belt and suspenders, and I trust our superintendent and our manager that they're just going to provide this to us anyway. But if people are compelled to say, all right, we want to, stick this, onto that, then I would, hopefully a friendly amendment, Commissioner Zell, is just state that management and the police department will provide the information as outlined by President Sinai, and he can give that information to our township secretary. That makes it a whole lot easier. Does that work, Commissioner Zell?
It is not, because I simply want to know is how effective is the removal of the college credits in increasing the number of applicants? Because that's what's been presented.
I'll just take 30 seconds, no more. You're getting the data, which will give you that conclusion. You're just asking, your motion just asks for the conclusion. What we want is the data, and I think the superintendent and the manager will then be able to educate us how effective it is based upon those numbers, right? So if we just get that data, then I think we'll all be able to say, we agree or disagree with some assessment. I think it makes it easier. Did I persuade you at all, Commissioner Zeloff?
I'm afraid not. I mean, if you want to, if we just want to say management
It's higher
report
in
annually,
Utah.
on the effective, no, I do want the conclusion. I understand the data that President Sinai is also asking for, but I also want to know the numbers. Have the numbers gone up?
All right, I'm not dying on this hill. Whatever you all want.
Any other commissioner comments or questions on this, on the amendment? Yes.
I'm going to blend my comments, but it will be on the amendment. I think the micromanage a wonderful team is crazy. Okay? That's my comment on and that's what we're trying to do, micromanage here. I have complete faith in Superintendent Block and his team. They've put together a lot of thinking. They're not going to let us down. And the 60 hours is easily attainable. I direct a postdoctoral program where these students have more than you can possibly manage as far as baggage, and they can attend school and they can do what they have to achieve their postdoctoral graduate programs. So I commend you and I applaud you on this program.
Thank you. Any other comments on this amendment? Seeing none, we will vote. All those in favor on the amendment on the floor, raise your hand.
1, 2, 3.
All right, those opposed? This clearly fails. All right, we're back to.
Does Commissioner Zeloff have any more comments? Is that it? It's still Commissioner Zeloff's floor.
Yes. Do you have any more comments, Commissioner, from Utah?
Are you asking, do I have any more comments?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevenson, what was the vote on the motion? I couldn't hear.
It was 4 in favor and 7 opposed.
Do I have any further comments? I think that the reason for having a reporting requirement is because it would be the risk of it becoming normalized, and we just don't address it again because we don't know the outcome. But I think that's already been debated and voted on. I have no more comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. President.
Okay,
floor
so
is yours.
now I need to make comments on the original motion. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So I support this. So I have learned a lot through the process of discussing this. And one of the things that I have come to appreciate is that college credits are not the only criteria of being a good officer. And there are lots of other criteria. If we focus only on college credits, we miss out on a bunch of those. So this seems like a good thing to do. It will increase the pool. Another thing I've come to appreciate is that 60 college credits has gotten to be kind of expensive. When we had discussed this earlier, we had noted that Montgomery County Community College, 60 college credits would cost $13,500 if you lived in the county. If you're out of the county, if you live out of the county, it's $24,000. If you're from out of state, it's $35,000 to get 60 credits. It's a lot of money to spend to qualify for a job that you may not get, right? And very unfocused credits as well. So this approach of taking applicants and saying after you have the position, to get your promotion and the higher pay that goes along with it, you are going to need those college credits. Strikes me as a much more appropriate way for people who are like, okay, I have the position, and to move up in my job, I need these college credits, for them at that point to take it. They're being paid. They have tuition support. The college credits make a lot of sense. And they can take classes that are focused on helping them with their job, as opposed to 60 college credits in anything, which is really all that we counted before. So I think that is a really terrific thing to do. I also think that the signing bonus is really hopefully helpful. One of the things that we have struggled with is we've had people take the test, but not necessarily make it all the way through to taking our job. Right? They will go to other police forces along the way. What is it that tips them to our job and to go through our lengthy process? Well, I think it's a very clever way of doing the signing bonus, where each step along the way you get a little more. It is a reward for sticking with us to the end in taking our job. I think that is a really smart thing to do. Will these work? I have no idea. But we need more police officers, and we need to try stumbling. And I'm delighted that we are actually trying to do this. I don't think that this devalues the higher education. I think this provides an incentive for people in our force to do it. I hope that the township can provide further support and people using this as an opportunity to move up in education that they might not otherwise have done. And as for maturity, I guess I will just beg to differ. As a college professor myself, attending college does not really signal to me like where you get more maturity, but that may be. I think working for between high school and applying for this job may actually be a really strong signal of the kind of maturity and interpersonal relations that we seek. So I am hopeful that this works. We'll revisit in a year and see if it does. I think we as a township really need something like this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yes, sir.
Thank you. I just want to comment. I am pleased to support this tonight, but my analysis of this is not as detailed as maybe some others. It's become apparent, if you live in the community, like we all do, that just being, the prospect of being a Lower Merion police officer, while all of us up here think people should be rushing to take the test and to apply for the job, it cut it out there with other people. I hear ads on the radio for the Orlando Police Department coming up here to recruit officers. I hear the Philadelphia Police Department on the radio with all sorts of incentives to recruit officers. What becomes apparent is that the old ways of recruiting officers don't work aren't as effective as they used to be. So we need these extra tools so that we have the applicant pool that comes in that can take the test, and then our senior staff and those charged with selecting people qualified to be our officers can make those judgments and hire those people. So again, to me, whether it's reducing, eliminating the credits that you need, adding a signing bonus, whatever we need to do to get the right people interested in these jobs is what we ought to vote for. So thank you for bringing this forward, and I'm pleased to support it.
Thank you. Any other comments? Well, I'm just going to make a couple of brief comments saying that I do support this, and I support it because I think if any opportunities we have to try to increase our pool is good. But I think of this more than just about 60 credits. I think about the job, and not unique to Lower Merion, but other communities. People are not signing up to be police officers, and that has nothing to do about credits. It's about the dangers of the job and other things that come with it. And I think that anything that we can do to increase that stronghold is important. I do not minimize anything that anyone said, that we do not want to lose the high standard that we have in this township. I will say in the last 7 years, I've come across numerous members of the police force, dealing with different situations. In each of those situations, for the most part, I found them to be professional, to be well-equipped to deal with the situations. Was everything perfect every time? Absolutely not. But each time when I gave constructive feedback, we worked together to make sure that the next time we addressed the situation, it was better. And I didn't ask them whether they had 60 credits, 120 credits, a bachelor's degree or not. In fact, one of my favorite officers in a situation that I came in contact with, who was dealing with me with a situation, and I was very impressed with her, and I asked her, well, what police department did you come from? She said, actually, I worked at Chick-fil-A before I joined the force. And let me just tell you, and when you see her, tell her I said that. She had the highest standard that you would want to have. And I would say to you that I think that I do agree that we should review it every year to see if this is working. If it's not, then we need to figure out another way. But I do think that this is a good direction to get good people. So thank you. So having said that, now can we vote? All those in favor, raise your hand. All those opposed? Two. All right, so the numbers are, what are the numbers?
10-2.
9-2. All right, this passes. All right, thank you, Mr. Superintendent. All right, so the last one, and I've been blessed with a short one to read this time. This is the authorization to conduct competitive examinations for the position of probationary police officer. A motion to recommend the Board of Commissioners authorize the Civil Service Commission to conduct competitive examinations to establish eligibility list for the position of a probationary police officer. May I ask for a second? Thank you, Commissioner Kramer. Superintendent.
Yes, thank you. So currently we have 18 people that are in the background process right now from the fall recruitment campaign and taking the written and physical agility test and passing the oral examination. So we're moving through the backgrounds. We don't know how many of those 18 candidates that are still viable will make it through the background investigation. But that being said, we are down 17 officers right now from our authorized strength of 136. In addition to that, we have 13 officers that could retire tomorrow, which I don't think they're going to. So with that, those numbers, those metrics, we'd like to have the spring probationary police officers examination, and it requires the board to authorize the Civil Service Commission to advertise for that. So that's our request this evening, that we can start working on our spring recruitment with hopefully our new requirements.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Superintendent. Are there anyone from the public who have any comments? Jody, anyone online?
In fact, the only person online right now is a member of staff.
Great, thank you. So are there any questions or comments from the committee? Haven't seen none. Call for the vote. All those in favor, raise your hand. All those opposed? This passes unanimously. Mr. President, I would like to say, however, I missed the statement that that the item from number 2 it will be referred to the Special Board of Commissioners meeting, which will continue this evening. Having said that, the business of the police committee is concluded, and I am retired as ever chair of the committee again. Thank you so much.
There might be some votes for that. Thank you very much, Commissioner Stevenson, for filling in on that. And I was remiss earlier when we were talking about the 60 college credits and the signing bonus. We could not have done that without the cooperation and support of the FOP, because we had to amend the contract. And I should have mentioned that. I should have thanked FOP President Ishwitz for being here and for the FOP support. Okay, so our next committee is the Sustainability Committee. I recognize
Evening. We'll endeavor
The first one is an authorization to participate in the Delaware Valley Regional, I forget what the PC stands for, I should have thought of it. Planning Commission, thank you, Commercial Energy Benchmarking Program. So I'll move to that. We recommend to the Board of Commissioners authorizing submission of a letter of understanding to allow the township to participate in the Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission's Sustainable Buildings Collaborative Energy Benchmarking Program. Do I have a second? Thank you, Commissioner Kramer. Paloma, please enlighten us.
Okay. The action for you is to consider authorizing a letter of understanding. This would allow us to participate in this program with DVRPC, which would allow us to leverage their support to explore energy benchmarking policies and programs that we can then consider implementing here in Lower Merion. Our participation would include attending training events organized by DVRPC, communicating with large commercial building owners, providing energy use data to DVRPC as needed, working with them to develop a draft ordinance or a proposed policy, and then eventually considering a policy for adoption. DVRPC, in turn, would provide technical assistance, training, communication, and overall program management. And their partner, Green Building United, would support with technical assistance as well, especially as it relates to the actual inputs of data and the evaluation of data. So with that, in general, what we hope to accomplish with this in the end is to arrive at some mechanism to encourage building owners to review and report their energy data, with the hope that energy awareness will lead them to make energy saving choices in the future. So staff recommends authorizing the LEU, and welcome any questions.
Thank you, Paloma. I just have a couple that I hope you can clarify. We put a lot on your plate. You're very busy. Do you have time to do this?
Will I have time to do this?
Yes.
So that's the great benefit of this is, if you were to ask me, do I have time to explore and run a program on my own, I would say no. But the benefit of this is we're really outsourcing all of that to DVRPC and Green Building United. As far as the initial phase, which is that outreach and the ordinance or policy development, they're taking on the burden of that. And then even greater is if we do implement a policy, they, along with Green Building United, are taking on the massive burden of technical assistance to folks who are reporting their energy usage, following up, and things like that. So for staff, it's a very minimal commitment and time, time resource compared to what all we're getting out of it.
Great. And then you talked about the requirement to review an ordinance. Is there any requirement that we adopt an ordinance?
There's no requirement that we adopt an ordinance, and in fact, there might not be an ordinance at all. So it's a ordinance or policy or program, and what the next 6 to 9 months of outreach and engagement will tell us is what it is that we are ultimately bringing to the board. So that'll be informed by our conversations with staff, our conversations with you all, conversations with our advisory boards and building owners, and that'll all go into what it is that we're actually recommending. And whatever it is that we recommend, there's no obligation that it be adopted.
Great. Thank you. I realize I got ahead of myself. Why don't we open the floor for public comment? Would anyone in the room like to comment on this? Are we still unattended on Zoom?
Correct.
Okay, great. So with that, would anyone on the committee like to ask questions or give comment on this one? President Cynwyd.
Yeah, I'll just give a brief comment, and thanks for bringing this forward, and thanks for your willingness to participate in this. I think it's a noble effort and an important cause. When I first saw this, I grappled with it some, right? So here we are working with DVRPC, and it was like, well, are we going to feel obligated to adopt something that we had a hand in writing, right? Like there would be some pressure in that. But the alternative to that is like not influencing it at all, right? And so it seemed better to have a voice in the room for this to me. If that voice in the room was not influential and they came up with something that we did not agree with, we would just simply not adopt it, and then it wouldn't be weird, like they didn't do what we thought they should do. And if it did come up with something that we thought should happen, then of course we would support it. And so it seemed to make a lot of sense to have our voice in that. And I'm glad you're willing to be that voice. And I just imagine and trust that you will just reflect the interests of the board. So when it comes forward to us, it is something that hopefully we can adopt or would want to if it's a actual ordinance.
And I should add also that as part of the outreach, it involves outreach to elected officials. So I'll definitely let you know when those opportunities arise so that yourselves can have that input as well.
Thank you, Commissioner Courtney.
Sure thing. Would anyone else? Yes, sir. Mr. Ryan.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Courtney. And Paloma, thank you for responding to my email earlier. Part of the concern that I was raising is something that Commissioner Courtney brought up, and that was the time, for ourselves and for you. And you pointed out that a lot of the information about what we're doing within our own building structures, we already have that. And I think it may predate everyone that's sitting here except myself and Manager McNeely, who was responsible for putting a lot of this information together when he was promoting other energy-saving proposals when the board had a different configuration. So I bring that up because we have been, well, actually, I forgot, Commissioner Zeloff would recall. We have been ahead of the curve from many, many other municipalities for a long time of taking a look at what we can do for energy conservation, within our own four walls of the many buildings that we have. So it's nice to know that we'll be able to, we're already there for that benchmarking data. And then you indicated educating people within the community, look, this is out there. It never hurts, even if what we're doing is stating the obvious. And the point just raised by President Sinai, I'm not sure, as I asked you, what an ordinance would be, what it would be asking us to ask others to do or not to do, but we'll entertain whatever good ideas that people have and decide if we agree or disagree with it. And I also concur with the thought that if we can have a seat at the table during that process, that's better than receiving it just simply on the tail end. So appreciate you bringing this forward, and I'm glad to see it's not going to burden us, in any fashion in participating. Thank you.
Yes. Anyone else? All right. With that,
Scott.
Oh, Commissioner Zeloff. Yes.
And I think I heard you say it, and I think I read it in your memo. But I guess I think it's important to ask and just hear your response. Is participation by building owners completely voluntary?
So we're not at the point that we would be involving external building owners. So participation right now is just us exploring what a policy would be, if that makes sense. So right now, we wouldn't be requiring or asking building owners really to do anything. We're just making a requirement of ourselves to participate in this exploration process. And then what comes before the board will be a result of that exploration process.
So I don't have your memo in front of me, but I recall that it said that part of our staff would be contacting building owners and asking them to provide information.
In the early stages, we'd be contacting them more to promote the idea of benchmarking and to, let them know about our benchmarking efforts and how they've been successful. And it's more of an engagement piece than any sort of request of the building owners at this juncture.
So I guess I'm a little confused by the words you're using, but are we going to be requesting building owners to provide information?
That is a likely outcome of a proposed policy, but it's not something we're asking right now.
Okay, but is it your understanding that or expectation that building owner participation would be encouraged but voluntary?
in any, I guess our hope is that any policy that we ultimately come up with is encouraging building owners to report their energy use. Whether that is voluntary or mandatory, it will be a decision of the board, and that proposal of whether it's mandatory or voluntary will be based on all these discussions that we have along the way. So right now we don't have a policy proposal that is saying, building owners will or won't, or it's voluntary or mandatory. We're just committing to exploring what a policy could be.
So we're going to be having further discussions, but you said all of this is being outsourced to DVRPC. So help me understand how that's going to work.
Sure. So to give an idea of kind of what we're expecting to transpire over the next, say, 6 to 9 months is DVRPC will start, we'll see which municipalities are participating in this program. These municipalities will meet regularly with DVRPC. DVRPC will hold training events and workshops for staff, for elected officials, for advisory boards to educate them on what energy benchmarking is, what different types of policies are out there, and start helping us explore what type of program or policy we might be interested in bringing to Lower Merion. So that's, the better part of the coming year will really just be exploring what a policy could be, and that's the support that DVRPC is helping us with. They'll also be helping us do outreach to building owners of large commercial buildings, again, letting them know, that they can benchmark, that there are tools available to benchmark, what the benefits are, and things like that. And then, once we develop through that process a draft policy or ordinance, that would, of course, go to the board to decide whether they want to move forward. And if they did, then the technical support from DVRPC and Green Building United would be helping building owners get their energy data benchmarked. But there's a lot of kind of steps along the way before that happens.
All right. Well, thanks for that explanation. I guess I would be my preference that it be clear from the start that this would be something that would be encouraged and sounds like extremely beneficial to building owners, but we would come into it with the understanding that this would be a voluntary program for the many building owners in our township. So, but I've already asked you that question, so thanks very much, Plum.
Sure. And I do think there are other municipalities participating in this that are more interested in exploring a voluntary program as opposed to a mandatory ordinance. So, and I have heard from others that is Lower Merion's preference as well. So we'll definitely be sharing that perspective in this exploration process, that the voluntary option is what a lot of folks are leaning towards.
Well, you've heard from others, or you've said to others that that's our preference.
I've heard from others that is Lower Merion's preference, and I will make sure to convey that in these discussions with DVRPC.
You've heard from other commissioners and others in the community?
Yes.
Okay, so now you're hearing from me. Okay, got it. All right, well, that's very helpful. Thank you.
All right. With that, why don't we call the vote? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? Abstentions? Madam Secretary, that carries unanimously. The final item on the agenda tonight is a reappointment and 3 new appointments to the Environmental Advisory Council. I move that we recommend to the Board of Commissioners the reappointment of Nancy Winkler to the Environmental Advisory Council for a 4-year term, such term to expire September 2028, and the appointment of Zoe Davis, Ellen Kohler, and Joy Waterman to the EAC for 4-year terms, such terms to expire February 29. Do I have a second? Thank you, Commissioner Gavin. I have a little bit of information on these folks. I think everyone here is probably aware of who Nancy Winkler is. She has a background in municipal finance and is served as the chair of the EAC for several years, including contributions to our current sustainability plan. I am thrilled that she wants to continue volunteering in this position. Zoe Davis holds an MBA with a certificate in sustainable business and has experience with grants, sustainability practices, and data analysis. Ellen Kohler is a legal professional working with communities and partners on complex water and natural resource management challenges. Joy Waterman is a sustainability and environmental professional who's worked in strategy and communications roles, developing and supporting marketing, communications, and community engagement, all things we need from our EAC. Do we have any public comment on these appointments? I'm going to assume there's nobody on Zoom still. Any questions, comments from the committee? Commissioner Gabbard.
Very quickly, I have the pleasure of chairing our nominations committee. Met with Commissioner Stevenson, Commissioner Whalen, Secretary Kelly, Dan Sutton, who chairs the EAC in Paloma. When we interviewed candidates, we had amazing candidates across the board. And I think, you know, as you said, what really led to these candidates is they have a diverse set of background and experiences that really will round out the EAC nicely. For those who are not getting appointed to the board, please continue to apply. It's a question of, you know, where we are, what skills we have on the board, because we did have incredible candidates, as we always do, for our volunteer advisory boards. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Gabbard. Anyone else? All right, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? Abstentions? Commissioner Zella, if your hand is still up, was that a yes vote?
That was a extended yes vote.
All right.
I'm proud of you, Scott.
Extra support from Commissioner Zella. That carries unanimously, and that ends the business of the Sustainability Committee for the day.
Okay, thank you very much, Commissioner Courtney. So the next committee for this evening is the Library Committee. I recognize its Vice Chair, Commissioner Rossman.
Thank you very much.
Good luck with this crowd tonight.
And I know we have 2 more hours until Utah gets to our time. We're 1 hour behind, but I just got a text from Paul McElhenney. We already have 4 inches of snow on the road, so we're going to try to go through this smoothly. We don't have 4 inches. Let me retract that. Thank you. Oh, thank you very much. I thought there's no laughter. Just break it up a little bit. Thank you, Josh, Commissioner Grimes. There's a resolution of the Library Committee authorizing staff to submit a Montco 2040 grant for the Belmont Hills Library Outdoor Patio and Walkway Project. Motion?
Oh, that wasn't your
No, the motion will be to recommend to the Board of Commissioners adoption of a resolution authorizing submission of a grant application to the Montgomery County Montco 2040 Implementation Grant Program for the Belmont Hills Library Outdoor Patio and Walkway Project. Do I have a second? Commissioner Grimes. Brandon, would you like to make some comments?
Yes, Commissioner, I'll be real brief. Both items before the Library Committee tonight are grant applications. This is a grant program with the county that we're allowed to put in a maximum of 2 grants, but only be awarded 1. The Belmont Hills Outdoor Patio and Walkway is a repeat appearance that came up last year. It was not selected for funding. We got funding for another project instead. So we've come back to request that this resolution be adopted by the board so we can seek out $108,000 or 80% of the overall project cost for this project at Belmont Hills Library.
Thank you. I open the floor to the public to make any comments. No comments seen, no hands raised. Ms. Kelly?
No one raising their hand on Zoom.
Thank you so much. If there are no questions or comments from the committee, then I call for a vote. All those in favor? Those opposed? There are 5 inches of snow now. Authorizing staff to submit a Montco 2040 grant for the Penwyn Library Solar Project. Motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners adoption of a resolution authorizing submission of a grant application to the Montgomery County Montco 2040 Implementation Grant Program for the Penwyn Library Solar Project. Ask for a second. Commissioner Epstein? Thank you. Brandon, a little explanation, please.
Certainly, Commissioner. The second of 2 grant applications to the county. This time we are asking for the maximum of $250,000 for the solar project, which is a roof-mounted solar, as well as a solar array in the back parking lot behind Penwyn Library. This is a project that is currently finalizing in design and that we hope to start this year. The quick turnaround with the county grant funds means that this award would be announced somewhere in June, and we don't anticipate to put shovels in the ground in that project until later in the summer, July or August, so the timing is right. So if we are awarded funding, this would reduce the township cost, which is currently at $260,000 after we account for federal rebates and federal credits, to $10,000.
Thank you. I feel like I should say Brandon, it's all shoe. Any comments from the public? Ms. Kelly, any comments on Zoom? No. Okay. There are no comments from the committee? Then I call for a vote. All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Those opposed? Thank you, President Sinai. I rest my case.
Okay, thank you very much, Commissioner Rossman. The next committee meeting for this evening is the Building and Planning Committee. I recognize its chair, Commissioner Grimes.
Thank you, President Sinai. So we have one item tonight concerning the approval of an application regarding a cistern found at Ashbridge House. I am going to move to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of the following application as recommended by the Historical Commission at their meeting held on January 27, 2025. Approval to fill a newly discovered historic cistern adjacent to Ashbridge House in order to allow for the construction of the previously approved building addition, with a subcommittee to review the inclusion of a reference to the well in the completed project and to assist with decisions relating to any further unanticipated discoveries found during construction. Is there a second? Thank you, Commissioner Dr. Rossman. I understand that we have our township manager can provide some brief comments, and that Greg is here. I was about to say, if anyone would like to hear this is actually kind of a fascinating item, but would be more fascinating if it wasn't the last thing on the agenda. Would anyone like to hear a brief discussion of this? So I'm seeing no one brave enough to raise their hands. What's that?
A quick discussion of it?
Yeah, no, well, I was seeing, Greg, you know, this thing was buried for 200 years. We'll give you 90 seconds. Unless, Ernie, you want to.
I'll do my best. Please feel free.
Sure, maybe it's easier if I explain, and you've got a lot of this in the issue brief, but construction started on the approximately $5 million project to renovate Ashbridge House and to add an addition onto it, including an elevator primarily, so we can utilize public space on the second floor. As they were began excavation and clearing for the addition, they ran into essentially a cistern or a well about 30 feet deep. It goes down below the level of the foundation for the new addition and is actually in the way of the foundation of the new addition. As we found it, we immediately brought Greg into the process and got ourselves onto the Historic Commission agenda so we could seek advice from them. Historic Commission has made a very reasonable suggestion to you to essentially allow the bottom portion of it to be filled with something that easily excavated if somebody later on wanted to go explore. Take out the upper section, which is in the way of the foundation, so the addition can be built as planned. Document what we have. We've actually already, Greg's been out there. We used a camera that we had in the sewer department to lower into the hole. We actually have essentially a film of what the hole looks like. It's essentially a dry laid stone cistern or well with what looks to be garbage at the bottom. So the solution recommended by the Historic Commission allows the project to keep going, prevents us from having delay damages with the contractor who's on the site working right now, and also keeps us on schedule for expending our ARP dollars, which are involved in this project and must be spent by the end of 26. Be glad to answer any questions, and Greg can also answer questions.
Great, thank you. So
There's a picture.
I thought that was Greg. So, first of all, Greg, let me thank you for putting on a tie, though I hope it wasn't just for tonight's meeting. Let me just start off by saying how much I appreciate the recommendation the Historical Commission made tonight. As those of us who are interested in historic preservation, I suspect the first reaction is to say, this is a class 1 resource, the cistern is important, we need to spend some extra money to preserve the cistern. Having said that, the Historical Commission did some of the work for us, so we don't have to, presumably don't have to do that tonight, because they have reached with our staff what I think is a very good compromise. In fact, I think they were in places a little overly generous, though I'm not going to change the motion, in that I think their suggestion that there be a reference to the well as part of the completed project is a good one, and I'm not sure why it's something that seems less than certain in this, but I'm going to trust that the commission, the subcommittee, the commission, and our staff can work together on doing that. So bottom line, thank you, Historical Commission. Thank you, Greg and Ernie and staff, on coming up with what I think is a acceptable and good way to handle this unique challenge. So, any other commissioners with comments, questions? Is there any public comment on this? And Jody, there's no public comment. Okay. Great, okay. We'll call the vote. All those in favor, please raise your hands. Okay. Any opposed? We can't see Commissioner Zelov's vote if he's still here. Oh, he's gone?
He's there, but he's...
Oh, there he is. All right, is that an aye, Scott?
It's actually a hand.
Okay, thank you. Okay, passes unanimously. Passes, and this will go on the special board meeting agenda in about 2 seconds. That concludes the Building and Planning Committee business for tonight.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Grimes. As you alluded to, we are not quite done. We now need to just, in a special Board of Commissioners meeting, just re-vote on the things we just did, so we can actually get them underway. So we start reconvening the special Board of Commissioners meeting, and we go back to public comment. Is there public comment on any of the two ordinances or two issues we're about to address, which is a Historical Commission application for the Ashbridge House Cistern, or the Civil Service Commission rules and regulations for the police officer college credit requirements and the signing bonus that we discussed? Seeing no one in the room. Jody, anyone online? Okay, that closes that. So I'm going to move that we approve to fill a newly discovered historic cistern adjacent to Ashbridge House in order to allow for the construction of the previously approved building addition, with a subcommittee to review the inclusion of a reference to the well in the completed project and to assist with decisions relating to any further unanticipated discoveries found during construction. And I'm thinking dinosaur bones is hopefully something we do not turn up. Is there a second? Thank you, Commissioner Gavin. Any remaining questions or discussion? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously. We're now on to the items from the Police Committee. So that's the authorization to advertise the ordinance, Chapter A, 164, Civil Service Commission Rules and Regulations, Police Officer College Credit Requirements, and to implement police hiring incentives. So this one's a long one. So I'm going to move that we recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of the following actions. Authorize the Township Secretary to advertise notice of intent to adopt an ordinance to amend the Code of the Township of Lower Merion, Chapter A164, Civil Service Commission Rules and Regulations, Section A164-24, General Qualifications, to remove the application requirement for 60 credit hours from an accredited college or university or 5 years' experience with the municipal or state police force, to amend Section A164-38, General Qualifications for Civil Service Promotion, to require 60 credit hours from an accredited college or university for promotion to a senior class officer, and to amend Section A164-41-1, Civil Service Promotion of Class A Police Officer, to provide that a Class A Police Officer with 1 year of service and 60 credit hours from an accredited college or university shall be promoted to senior class police officer if qualified. We're also eliminating the $30 application fee to take the police civil service hiring test. And C, offer a $5,000 bonus for new police officer hires according to the following schedule, effective with the next civil service police officer hiring exam. $1,000 at signing, accepting, and meeting the terms of a conditional offer of employment, $1,500 upon successful completion of the 15-week field training officer program, and $2,500 upon completion of the probationary period. The township will reserve the right to recover any funds awarded to any newly sworn entry-level police officer who voluntarily resigns before the successful completion of their probation. Do I have a second? Thank you, Commissioner Bernheim. Any remaining questions or comments? Seeing none, we're going to vote. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed? Okay.
One.
No, two. Commissioner Zoff. So was that 9 to 2? 9 to 2. Okay, 9 to 2. Okay. That concludes tonight's business. This meeting is hereby adjourned. Never been so delighted to bang this gavel. Yeah, there we go.